What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video, and in this video we're going to touch on some of the news that came out today regarding the New York Giants roster, some new things that they may potentially be trying on the offensive line. Of course, they're very banged up there. Also, a little bit of injury news on Evan Engram, some good news there. And I also wanted to touch a little bit more on Daniel Jones and some of the things he's been able to accomplish so far this year and what we need him to continue to do in terms of consistency. That's what I think all New York Giants fans are looking for. We need consistency out of this quarterback. He's definitely shown glimpses in the past, and last week he showed a lot of it, and it was against at least an average defense, and he's looked pretty good so far this year. We'll jump further into that throughout this video, but we need to continue to see that. I am super excited so far about the way he's played, and I do think ultimately he will end up having a good year, but we'll see how they're able to protect for him. We'll see how these wide receivers are able to further develop. That's been one of the most encouraging things for me in terms of seeing what Daniel Jones has been able to do, despite the fact that Barkley's still not himself. Kadarius Toney hasn't even really played, and him and Kenny Golladay certainly don't have great chemistry quite yet. You have to figure all three of those things will improve. The question is, could this offensive line hold up? This week, we know going up against the Atlanta Falcons, that this is make or break. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys. Yes, of course, if the New York Giants do ultimately end up losing, will I still cover the team? Absolutely. Am I still going to be a fan of the team? Yes. Am I still going to be just as emotionally invested? Yes. But if you get off to an 0-3 start, especially being if you lose to the Atlanta Falcons, a team that you're supposed to clobber, and you drop to 0-3, yeah. In terms of making the playoffs, if I'm being honest with you, it's a snowball's chance in hell, especially seeing how good Dallas played last night. Yesterday, I should say, they look good on the defensive side of the football, and so far that's been a pleasant surprise for them. The Giants have got to absolutely win this football game, and then we'll see what they can do going forward, but they cannot afford to get off to an 0-3 start. This Atlanta Falcons defense leads me to believe, if I'm going to continue to believe in the growth of Jones and the growth of this offense, the Giants have to light them up on fire. I mean, this Atlanta Falcons defense has given up 80 points. 80 in their first two games. 32 points to the Eagles and 48 points to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Where do I expect the Giants to be? Probably somewhere in the middle. I think they should score at least 27 to 30 points, and I'm hoping for more, obviously dependent on how the game plays out. Maybe if we're running the ball effectively and we kill them that way, maybe in the mid to high 20s, but I would like to see an offensive explosion this week from Daniel Jones in this offense, build some confidence, build a little bit more consistency going into that pivotal week 4 matchup against the New Orleans Saints, and we'll see if Daniel Jones and this New York Giants offense is able to get the job done against this weak defense. Of course, on our side of the ball, that's been underwhelming as well. We thought this defense would be much better. I don't want to discount that. Our defense needs to show up and play much better football. Now, Kyle Pitts is definitely going to be a mismatch, but you look at this Falcons team, they could put up some points, but I mean, the Eagles held them in check to 6. The Giants are coming in as a 3.5-point favorite, and if I'm being honest, this is probably one of the 4 or 5 teams at home where we'd be favored against, based off the way we've started this year. I think the Giants need to have a convincing victory against this Atlanta Falcons team, and I'm not going to make guarantees, but that's my expectations going in. I would like to beat this team by double digits. I would like to point out to the fan base that, yes, there is some potential with this team going forward, and we have overcome that heartbreaking defeat against the Washington football team. But let's start with the story of the day in terms of the potential lineup shuffle. And that, in fact, is Matt Peart. Let's jump right into this. Peart, of course, was a guy we all expected at least had a strong possibility of starting on the right side when the year started at the tackle spot. Had the longest arms of any tackle prospect in the 2020 draft when the Giants drafted him 99th overall, and nobody really saw this coming. I'll dive a little bit into his exposure at the guard spot in the past, but most people obviously had him projected out to be a tackle. That doesn't mean it can't work. Nick Gates was a very big center. People questioned that when the Giants did it. He at least played satisfactory. He was a solid lineman for the New York Giants. Eric Flowers transitioned from tackle to guard as well. So maybe Joe Judge is seeing what he's got with Peart at the guard position, and we'll see if it happens in a football game. Of course, right now, Nate Solder's still starting on the right side. This coming out from Jordan Renan. Matt Peart going to rotate on through. Joe Judge mentions we're going to see him work some inside guard now, too. The Giants are very hopeful that Shane Lemieux's season is not over, per Joe Judge, but reality is he's consulting doctors about potential procedures. Lemieux has been dealing with a knee injury. So I wouldn't bank on Lemieux coming back this year, and if he does, I wouldn't bank on him being 100%, but we'll see. It sounds like it's something that he's probably going to have to get surgery sooner than later, and if he does, it's better that he gets it out of the way now. But we'll see how it all plays out. This just some evidence about how much, exposure he does have to playing that guard position with Matt Peart. This coming from the UConn website. Despite playing guard until his senior year, so he played guard up until his senior season while at UConn, Peart started every game at right tackle his last season for the Huskies. He also participated in the Senior Bowl, where scouts reportedly came away very impressed with his skill set. So he does have some experience playing at the guard spot. It's not like he's never played it before, and maybe if the New York Giants like what they see, they'll elect to go that route. Of course, the other options, you could play Bredesen over there. Bredesen kind of stepped in last week when Nick Gates went down with the injury. We, of course, made a trade to acquire him. I would assume Billy Price is probably going to stay at that center spot, which to me, he had some ups and downs in that game. We'll see if they can piece it all together. It's very hard for me to come down on the offensive line, and I actually think Rob Sale's done a hell of a job, all things considered, with all the guys that have retired, all the injuries they've had to overcome. The offensive line has not cost us football games. I'm not saying it's helped us win. I think their pass blocking has at least been satisfactory, though, which is more than I could have expected going into the year. Jones has been sacked 6 times in 2 games. That's 3 a game. That's not great, but realistically speaking, I couldn't have hoped for much more. They have given him some time to make some throws at times, which is all I can ask for as a Giants fan right now, based on the status of our offensive line. This now coming out from Dan Duggan. Tight end Evan Engram, calf injury, was moving well during practice, trending toward playing on Sunday. Didn't see Cam Brown do much. Light workload for Saquon as well. As far as the light workload for Saquon, I feel like that's kind of to be expected, being that he's coming off that significant injury. He played 2 games in a 4-game span. Giants probably going to take it light with Saquon the first couple of days of this week. But I do think Saquon Barkley will be at least closer to being the Saquon Barkley that we all remembered and loved before that serious injury. The first 2 weeks, obviously he had that one nice run, but you haven't really seen that burst. I think you'll see more and more of vintage Saquon as he continues to get more acclimated to the NFL game. But we'll see how he looks week 3. He could be a big, big boost to this offense. As far as Evan Engram goes, I know he's public enemy number 1 for a lot of New York Giants fans. But Evan Engram, we talk about separation. Right now, the New York Giants, I think from what I read on Twitter today, lead the NFL in drop passes, and they're still if they're not at the bottom, they're right near the bottom in terms of creating separation. A guy like Evan Engram could certainly help that. A guy like Kadarius Toney could certainly help that, and obviously a lot of people point to the scheme as well. Hopefully Toney gets more overall, and hopefully Evan Engram gets back out there on the football field. Has to hold on to the football, though. That's been a major problem already this year without him in the lineup. As far as Golladay goes, you don't expect for him to create separation, so I'm not really shocked by the stat. He's a guy that's going to go up there and catch contested balls. That's what he's known to do. Hopefully by getting Evan Engram back and implementing Kadarius Toney in, it should help a little bit in the separation department. Another thing I really wanted to hit home with is just how impressive Daniel Jones has been so far this year, and the change in which the way that the New York Giants have used him. And again, this is going against challenging defenses. Denver going in, many felt had the best secondary in the NFL. And if it wasn't the best, it was among the best. And Washington, we all know last year that they were the number 2 rated defense in all of football. Well, so far this year, one thing you can't say about the Giants, they are not checking the ball down time and time again with Daniel Jones. So far this year, he is first in the NFL in average completed air yards per pass. He's averaging 9.2 yards per each pass that is completed. That is nearly a yard more than the next closest quarterback, that being Russell Wilson at 8.3. Last year, he was much lower than this. I think he was in the bottom 7 or 8 quarterbacks in football. And his intended air yards, he still ranks 5th, but really 3rd, because there's 2 non-starting quarterbacks on that list. I think it was Mills from Houston and Justin Fields, who's barely played, got a little bit of exposure with the Bears yesterday. We're ahead of him, but it's really just Trevor Lawrence, and there was another quarterback ahead of him as well. I think it was Russell Wilson in intended air yards. So he's in the top 5 in both categories of intended air yards and completed air yards. So they are throwing the ball down the field a lot more than they did last year, which probably explains why his passer rating is as high as it is. Right now, overall, he's the 6th highest graded passer per PFF in the NFL, and he is 2nd in terms of just throwing the football. Of course, the overall grade is going to recognize your running ability as well, which I would think would only help him, but maybe the fact that he fumbled while he was running, I don't know, maybe that lowered his grade. But this coming out from Big Blue View. After 2 games, the only quarterback in the NFL with a higher PFF passing grade than Daniel Jones is Tom Brady. And that's without having chemistry with Kenny Golladay and all of this. By no means am I telling you guys that I'm completely sold on Daniel Jones, that I know he's a franchise quarterback. But what I am telling you is I am convinced that I need to see 15 more games of this guy before I can come to a conclusion whether he's the guy or whether he's not. The potential is there. The question is, can we get consistency? But the other question I have is, do we have a team that is going to set him up to be consistent? You need to be able to hold blocks the way that we've been able to hold them the first 2 weeks, and hopefully with more chemistry and maybe some more explosion by getting Barkley, more healthy, we will get to see a better Daniel Jones this year. I am confident we will. There's a reason I thought he'd throw 30 touchdowns at the beginning of the year, but the proof's in the pudding. We'll see if he's able to do it coming out against the Atlanta Falcons. I personally think Daniel Jones should throw at least 3 touchdowns in this football game. Unless, of course, he runs 2 or 3 in. His legs are always a factor, but I think Daniel Jones should have a very good game against the Atlanta Falcons. And if he does, well, that would be 2 strong games in a row to build off of going into the New Orleans Saints game. But we'll see if Daniel Jones has it in him. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.